If you were to ask a dog fanatic what the biggest downside or disadvantage to having a dog is, you might hear some nonsense like this.
The only bad thing about dogs is that they don't live long enough.
Or you might get some other such rubbish like,
The biggest disadvantage is that you will one day lose them, and your heart will shatter.
we don't have to look far to find a list of negatives associated with owning a dog. Even pro-dog sources will give examples, like the fact that dogs require attention, maintenance, walking, training, and picking up after. They will mention the cost of things like food, veterinary appointments, medicine and grooming, and they will mention having to plan vacations around them, and so forth. But you can't go to pro-dog sources to get a list of the negative impacts dogs have on us non-dog owners. And for the most part, you don't need to look up what these negative impacts are. Chances are you will have experienced a great deal of them firsthand, just as I have. And all it takes is to live in a society where dogs are present and abundant. Much of the planet is rapidly going to the dogs, in the most literal sense. When the world around you starts catering to dog owners and treating dogs themselves as though they were a privileged group as well, you definitely don't need to look far to understand just how detrimental dogs can be. Let me show you what I mean.
Just to take a random example, dogs ruin various public spaces with their mere presence. There's a reason dogs, and especially off-leash dogs, were an uncommon sight on beaches up until relatively very recently. But it is very well established that dogs utterly ruin local parks. Parks of all kinds, really. Just doing a web search for a phrase like dogs ruining parks will reveal that there is no shortage of commentary on the matter. But keep in mind that just like dog attacks that happen to be documented, this is only what people are willing to openly discuss. It does not reflect how widespread this sentiment is. I think this post raises a very important question. If there are already designated dog parks, which are places specifically intended to be dog-centric, then why are dogs ever permitted to be at other parks? These days, every park is basically a dog park, and it is getting worse.
But even people who actually have dogs will occasionally admit just how terrible dog parks are. Like in this article titled, Dog Parks, Why I Avoid Them Like They're the Plague. As we know full well, dogs damage the planet itself, and they do so deeply. Yet the environmental impact of dogs is seldom discussed by the average person. Hardcore environmentalists avoid the subject like the plague, not unlike the way some dog people avoid dog parks. But in my own life, I have found that there are also subtler psychological impacts, just from the presence of dogs, particularly in ordinary city haunts. I do a fair bit of walking about, and one unfortunate thing about the presence of dogs is that they have made me hyper-vigilant where I should in fact be relaxed. Based on multiple past experiences, I have come to learn that I need to be prepared to deal with a vicious charging dog or an intrusive off-leash mutt the very moment I step outside of my house. Spotting people in the distance and in the darkness leads to an automatic awareness of the possibility that there could be a dog, particularly when they are holding or carrying an object that can appear, at least for a split second or so, to be a dog or a dog on a leash. Now, just to be clear, this is mostly more of an annoyance than a trauma or a source of fright. But I say mostly because people do own some very dangerous dogs that are perfectly capable of becoming too much for the owners to control, and these beasts do pose a very credible threat of bodily harm to all humans, and they are very much out there. Dogs are the only thing in a modern city that has this effect on the human psyche. Whether it is a physical or auditory intrusion or an all-out attack, a dog can easily catch you off your guard. And, well, that's the rub, isn't it? You shouldn't constantly be on guard the moment you set foot outside your domicile. Now should you? Just the other day, some low-to-the-ground pit beast lunged straight toward me as it made a menacing vocalization, and it moved towards me so quickly that I would have had to kick it in less than a second, and then deploy my pepper spray, which I actually had in my pocket. Keep in mind that this occurred before I could take 10 steps outside my own front door. The piece of trash that tried to attack me was on a leash, and the fact that the owner pulled it back is the only thing which prevented it from running straight into me, mouth first. Even as conscious as I am of this problem, I was not prepared for such an encounter, this close to home. I normally have my pepper gel in its hand strap, along with a canister of my Fox pepper spray in a cargo pocket, among other things on my person, before I even step outside. But this time, I'd only taken my pepper spray and had it in my side pocket, which did not give me the instant access I would have needed to deal with this threat. After all, I was only checking the mail, and this was not an hour during which many dog walkers are typically out. But tragically, when dogs are present at all, you can never take peace for granted. Not even for a second. Had I used a gun, I definitely would have had to still kick the dog first to prevent it latching on, and, had I been distracted or complacent at the time, even with such a weapon on me, it would have bitten into me before I even had the chance to shoot. That is how fast this thing blindly and instinctively charged toward me. Dogs can move very fast, and despite how oblivious their owners and the general public are about them, they are unpredictable. I was not at all surprised that a dog behaved this way, and without provocation, of course. I was simply caught off guard and was not expecting this particular dog to aggress towards me like that in this particular moment. After all, I casually stepped around the sidewalk area the beast and its owner were on to avoid getting near the thing, and this was its reaction. Had I walked closer to it like a damned fool, it certainly would have bitten into me. However, I walk by many dogs on leads, and most of them don't react to my presence in any particular way. Dogs are far more aggressive when they are behind gates and fences. But, as multiple experiences have shown, no dog can be trusted not to try and launch a sudden, unprovoked attack. Not a leashed dog, and certainly not a loose dog that appears to a dog nutter to be playing. Finally, there are all sorts of social effects dogs constantly have on everyone affected by them, whether directly or indirectly, in addition to the psychological toll their overall influence has on people in close contact with them. These we will explore further in a future episode.